Have you ever tried to rid yourself of some inconvenience or bad habit or worse, only to have it come back again, despite your best efforts? Well, all the king's horses and all the king's men under Henry VIII and Edward VII and then Elizabeth the First tried to stamp out Catholicism in England, not just the Roman Catholic form of it, but all those vain repetitious prayers and veneration of heathen idols and worship of portraits and all those things that were called. But in a good horror movie, when the hero, I guess the hero in this movie is Henry VIII, and his friends, the Cromwells, think they have destroyed the enemy. There's that little scene in which we know that, something was going to happen in a sequel. Perhaps it was the superstitious crucifix that Queen Elizabeth I kept in her private chapel. Well, King Henry, with all of his horses and all of his men, tried valiantly to wipe out not Catholicism. Henry claimed to be a Catholic after all, and this continuous claim of the Church of England to be Catholic is central to the story we're telling today. But Henry found that he could make a lot of money by wiping out what came to be called popish idolatry. And it's not really sure what exactly Henry had in mind to accomplish. But whatever he had in mind to accomplish, it included the destruction, the burning of the image of Our Lady of Walsingham that is central to this story that I'm telling today. And I'm relying, by the way, on this lovely book that I mentioned in my previous video, Walsingham Pilgrims and Pilgrimage by Michael Rear, who was for many years the Roman Catholic, I don't remember his exact title, but vicar director of the Roman Catholic shrine at Walsingham. Well, as I say, Henry, who seemed to espouse the religion of whatever woman he was bedding at the time, after making a number of pious trips to Walsingham, tried to destroy the place, including burning the image there. There is a theory that one of the carvings in the Victoria and Albert Museum, Langham Madonna, is the actual image from Walsingham. But we don't know about that. Well, let's fast forward, shall we, to the 19th century, as easy as turning a page. And by that time, Catholicism was no longer illegal in England. After all, the Spanish Armada was not much of a threat anymore. And after years of burning Catholics and then making them illegal and then deciding they could even be members of Parliament, Catholicism began to rear its head in a number of ways in England. One of the most important for our story, and in many ways for the history of Anglicanism ever since, was the rise of what has come to be called Anglo-Catholicism in the wake of the Oxford movement and the ritualist and the like. And this isn't, of course, a video to go into all the details of that, but it is important to this story that one of the important Anglo-Catholic families were the Wagners. And the Wagners built a number of churches in poor areas in England, something that was often the work of the Anglo-Catholics, and one of those Wagners was Arthur Wagner, who restored a little church in a town near Walsingham. And as he learned about the history of the area and the fact that archaeologists had discovered the site, they thought, of the Holy House, he built at his little church in Buxted a chapel devoted to Our Lady, and then he would build on the side of it a shrine to Our Lady of Walsingham. And so began the restoration of the veneration and pilgrimage to Our Lady of Walsingham's shrine. It is suspected that during the time between the destruction of the priory and the shrine and the burning of the image of Our Lady of Walsingham, there had always been a trickle of pilgrims who knew about the spot and would go there and pray. But there's nothing official. And that would begin to change in 1896, when an Anglo-Catholic lady named Charlotte Barstow Lloyd wanted to do something to restore what was called the Slipper Chapel. It was the last little station chapel, so to speak, on the ancient pilgrimage from the south, from London, to Walsingham. And it had been a Roman Catholic church, of course. It's where Henry VIII had left his shoes for his last. Some people think that's why it's called the Slipper Chapel, because people would leave their shoes there. Where Henry had left his shoes for his barefooted walk to the shrine itself. Miss Boyd became herself a Roman Catholic on a trip to Rome, and so when she got back, the donations that she had accepted from Anglicans to buy and restore this little building were no longer available to her, but she was able to finance the purchase herself, and she wanted to give it to the church. But the church didn't know what to do with it. They would later find a use for it, and here it is restored. But the problem, of course, is that there were no Roman Catholics to speak of in Walsingham, and there were in nearby King's Lynn, and it was in nearby King's Lynn that at the time there was the official Roman shrine to Walsingham. But over the years, the church would find a place for the gift of our Lady Boyd. But the big impetus would come another, 3 decades later, with the arrival of Father Alfred Hope Patton, who was about as red-hatted, well, he wasn't a cardinal, of course, but he was a very ardent Anglo-Catholic, and he wanted to restore the Catholic traditions of the church, which Henry had suggested was all he was wanting to do, and to rebuild a shrine to Our Lady. And this is the shrine as he began to build it. And it included a replication, insofar as they could achieve it, of the original Holy House. Father Patton had an interesting relationship with his bishop over the years, who, well, let's put it this way, just having candles on an altar were dangerous things at that time. And, Father Patton wanted to have the big 6, and having images was dangerous and the like. And he had built a little shrine for what he thought was an accurate replication of the original image. And we have the feast today because in 1931, 1931, on October 15th, the image was translated to the chapel which he had built. The image had been in St. Mary's Church until then, the church that our previous hero had built. And he got in trouble immediately. His bishop said you can't have an image in an Anglican church, so they built a little, I forget what they call these in the Orthodox Church, but one of those little outside shrines for the image. And that translation of the image from St. Mary's to the new shrine in Walsingham is the feast that is observed today. All that is left of the original friary and shrine is the east end of the priory, and the Holy House would have been about here. Now, a remarkable thing has happened since 1931, and the restoration of at least Anglican devotion to Our Lady of Walsingham, and that is that it has become an important ecumenical shrine. I should have mentioned earlier that that most interesting of 19th century popes, well, one of the interesting ones anyway, Leo III, in 1897, just a year after Charlotte Boyd had bought the Slipper Chapel, had blessed the veneration of the image of Our Lady of Walsingham. Now, the role of Leo in rising Anglican Catholicism, I think, is quite fascinating because, of course, he is the one who said that Anglican orders are null and void. After all, it had just become possible for people to be legal Roman Catholics in England. And here were all of these Anglicans who said, well, you can be just as Catholic as you want to, and Anglican as well. You can see how Leo was in a bit of a bind. I think there's a picture here of the first Roman Catholic pilgrimage to Our Lady of Walsingham, which, no, that's Father Patton. Anyway, soon there came to be all sorts of pilgrimages to Our Lady. There is even now an Orthodox shrine at Walsingham, despite the fact that the apparition to Rocheldeth happened after the Great Split. And in theory, therefore, this is anathema sit. But, well, sometimes things are done which are not quite official. Sometimes the proclamations of old men in fancy clothes are overwritten by the actions of a virgin who is a bit more humble than they. And it has come to pass that Walsingham has become a center of prayer for the restoration of the unity of the church. The various shrines that struggled against each other for a good long time, vying for visitors, and I suppose also souvenir sales. The image of Our Lady that is there now is copied from a tourist medallion that would have been given to pilgrims, purchased by pilgrims in Walsingham before the dissolution of the friary. Let's read what Father Rear says, shall we? There is a close relationship between Walsingham and prayer for Christian unity. Every Anglican pilgrim to Walsingham prays for unity among Christians, for Our Lady originally had and still wills to have but one shrine at Walsingham. Yet she has two, and the two do not do her a double honor, but rather diminish her honor, because they are really the one shrine of the other ages, now split in two by the Christians who ought to be joining together in propagating its honor. Well, there's hope that by the 10,000s, well, just 2061, the 1,000 years, gosh, time goes fast, the 1,000 years anniversary of the founding of the shrine in 2061, there might just be one shrine. Father Dear quotes John Mason Neal: "Possible things may be done, the impossible things must be done." Now, one of the fascinating things about, I think, Our Lady of Walsingham and the restoration of the shrines there is it has come about, for the most part, despite the hierarchy of the church. When Mrs. Boyd, I think she's Mrs., I don't remember, bought the lady, the slipper chapel, the church wanted nothing to do with it. And Father Patton is one of the most important ordained folk involved, and his work there was a constant struggle against his bishop, or with his bishop. Now, to be fair, his bishop always restrained from quite denying his doing the things that he wanted to do, just saying, you know, that's not what I want. And Father Patton would say, oh yeah, I know, but he would do it anyway. And these days, of course, it is a place of pilgrimage for people of all faith and no faith. And I find it just amazing that this is not something that has happened, as I mentioned, because of the decisions of the church or the king and his men riding their horses, but of the continuing devotion to Our Lady of Walsingham, who appeared to that widow in 1061. And this to me is hope for what may become the reunion of the church in general. It has been continually the efforts of mostly ordinary folk who aren't necessarily concerned with the official proclamation, but who are very devoted to the simple statement of Our Lady, let it be unto me according to thy will. And these are folks who think that is probably the will of our Father and of his Son, that we would be one, even as the Son and the Father are one. Here is the interior of the Anglican Holy House restoration. Now, it's fascinating. I don't know how much I want to say about this, but if Rochelle were to come back today, the Anglican shrine would look much more like what she had expected than the Catholic shrine. And the Catholic Church is one of those, let's see if there's a picture here. Well, I'll post one from the internet. I don't see one. One of those sort of typical, dare I say, tacky Vatican II affairs. But even there, I think we're seeing a growing together. In many ways, the Roman Catholic Church looks not unlike the sort of church that the more puritanical parts of the Church of England wanted. In that time when the king's horses and the king's men were carrying off the papish images to burn them at Smithfield. And not long after, of course, the Eastern Church and the Western Church had said, anathema sit. Well, to return to Leo the 13th, one of the things that he said is that when England returns to Walsingham, Mary will return to England. And not all of England has returned to Walsingham, but more and more are all along. And who knows what the return of Mary to England might look like. Let us end this video not with a collect as we often do, but with the office hymn for Our Lady of Walsingham, as we find it in the Anglican office book. About as Anglo-Catholic a handful as one can find. Hail Mary, ever blessed of Walsingham, the Queen. Through visions of her childers thy favours there were seen. When England was thy dowry, their pilgrims bowed the knee. At morn and noon and even, they knelt to honour thee. Hail Mary, ever blessed, thy children still delight to tell abroad thy praises, thy miracles, thy might. Still pilgrims' feet are treading along the holy way. Hostess of England's Nazareth, receive us home today. Hail Mary, ever blessed, the wells of waters pure, which mark thy holy places, are signs that God doth cure for sick in soul and body, e'en since your children's day. They spring in benediction beside the pilgrim's way. Hail Mary, ever blessed, thy name is great indeed, for Jesus Christ our Saviour was in thy womb conceived. Thy name be ever praised, increasing in this place, and loud the angels' greetings, Hail Mary, full of grace. Amen. Almost certainly, all the king's horses and all the king's men will not restore what they once tore asunder. But perhaps the prayers of Our Lady and of gentle ladies and gentlemen praying with her, recognizing the power of her fiat, let it be to us according to your will, might achieve that. Thanks for watching.